All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into this completely invisible reality that's playing out inside your head, literally right now. See, every single day, your brain is either getting stronger or it's getting weaker. There's just no neutral ground here. And honestly, the scariest part the source material points out, most of us don't even notice the decline happening. We just go about our day totally unaware that our daily routines are kind of slowly eroding our cognitive abilities. So, we're going to break down the 3 habits that are actively making you less intelligent and map out exactly how this happens so you can just stop it dead in its tracks. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever had one of those days where your brain just feels kind of like it's in a fog? Where you sit down to work or study and you just feel slower? Your focus slips, your memory feels super sluggish, and your mind is basically just screaming for some kind of distraction. You might actually catch yourself wondering, why does my IQ feel so low? It's a completely valid experience, and honestly, it's incredibly frustrating. But it is absolutely vital we understand the root cause of this feeling before these habits completely hijack your brain. See, there's this massive, widespread misconception out there. People tend to assume that if they can't focus or aren't thinking sharply, it's just because they were, born unintelligent. They just throw their hands up and blame genetics. But actually, scratch that. The reality is deeply rooted in small daily habits. It's really not about how you were born at all. It's about these tiny, seemingly harmless daily routines repeated over and over and over again. These repetitive actions are exactly what slow down your memory and literally addict your mind to distractions. It's the little things doing the massive damage. Which brings us to our first invisible villain. Habit 1, social media kills focus. Let's move to and see how this builds. Every single time you open those apps, you're kicking off this really dangerous chain reaction that structurally changes how your mind processes information. It starts at step 1, right? Endless scrolling through short videos. You're just feeding your brain instant entertainment. But then we hit step 2. Your brain gets totally used to that rapid-fire dopamine, and suddenly your attention span shrinks. Your brain starts actively craving constant stimulation. And that brings us to step 3, which is the real danger zone. Because your brain expects that instant hit, doing anything like studying, deep thinking, or just reading a book suddenly feels incredibly boring. And finally, that leads straight into step 4. Because you can't concentrate on anything important anymore, your intelligence just fundamentally weakens. You are quite literally training your brain to reject deep thought. The rule here is just undeniable. The more distracted your mind becomes, the harder it is to think clearly. Period. Without focus, your intelligence becomes weaker. You literally can't separate the two. If your mind is constantly bouncing from one bright, shiny distraction to the next, it's never going to settle down long enough to process complex problems. You completely lose the clarity that you absolutely need for high-level thinking. So, let's shift over to our second destructive habit. Habit 2, the sleep deprivation myth. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that number, 4 or 5. We all know those people who proudly brag about sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, right? They wear it like this badge of honor in modern hustle culture. There's this incredibly toxic idea out there that sacrificing your sleep somehow proves you're working harder than everyone else. But looking at the research, bragging about this is basically like bragging about actively destroying your own brain. Lack of sleep severely damages your cognitive function, and 4 or 5 hours, that is simply nowhere near enough time for your brain to do its basic, necessary maintenance. Because when you skip sleep, you're missing out on some highly active mechanical necessities. First off, your brain physically repairs itself. Second, it actually stores the memories of what you learned that day. And third, it resets your mental energy for tomorrow. If you're constantly cutting your sleep short, you are interrupting all 3 of these totally crucial processes. This right here is exactly why highly successful people take their sleep so seriously. They know it's hands down their biggest competitive advantage. And when you don't get enough rest, honestly, everything just falls apart step by step. Your reaction time slows way down, your memory gets noticeably worse, and even super simple tasks suddenly feel like climbing a mountain. A tired brain just cannot think clearly, and it definitely cannot make smart decisions. If you're exhausted, you're essentially operating with a compromised IQ, plain and simple. All right, let's introduce our third and final villain. Habit 3, the multitasking illusion. Society absolutely loves to push this idea that juggling a million tasks means you're somehow getting ahead. Most people genuinely believe that if they're managing 5 things at once, they're being incredibly productive. We're constantly switching between messages, videos, apps, work, just back and forth all day. But here's what's actually happening under the hood. Every single time you switch between these inputs, you force your brain to completely reset its attention. And there is a massive penalty for this. This constant resetting totally exhausts your brain and completely shatters your ability to hold a single thought for any meaningful amount of time. Multitasking doesn't build productivity at all. It actively destroys your concentration. So the crucial point is, to combat this, we need deep focus. That's the ability to concentrate deeply on one single thing for a long time. And the source material makes this abundantly clear. This is arguably one of the most important skills you can possibly possess for becoming smarter. If your brain is just exhausted from constantly resetting its attention, deep focus becomes literally impossible. And naturally, the more distracted your brain is, the harder learning becomes. You're essentially locking yourself out of your own intelligence. And this brilliantly illustrates our ultimate goal: reclaiming your deep focus. It's not about finding some magic pill. It really just means eliminating these 3 daily habits so you can protect your intelligence. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to remember exactly how we started. There is no neutral ground here. Your daily habits are actively wiring your mind right this very second. So look at the very next thing you're about to do today and ask yourself honestly, is my brain getting stronger today or is it getting weaker? Because ultimately, the choice is entirely yours.